Good day and welcome to another edition of One-on-One with Swope Health. I am your host, Eric Wesson. Thanks so much for joining us today. We've got a great show. Our guest today is Mr. Emmet Pierson. He is the president and CEO of Community Builders of Kansas City and just an all-around good guy. Emmet, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much and happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you as well. So, where are you from? How did you wind up in Kansas City?
So I am a native Kansas Citian.
Okay.
I grew up at 52nd in Brooklyn, the Blue Hills neighborhood, so shout out to my old neighborhood.
Okay.
My 90-year-old mother is still alive and still living in the same house and former neighborhood president and advocate. So, I'm from literally around the way.
Really? Where'd you go to school?
I went to Visitation for grade school.
Okay.
I went to the only high school that really matters, Rockhurst High School.
Okay.
And then I went to the University of Kansas.
KU,
Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
So you were out there for the Colorado and KU gang?
I was not. I gave my tickets up to the community.
Okay.
So I was not there, but I watched it on TV.
Good. It was a good game.
Great game.
Yeah. And so go to church?
Sometimes.
Where at?
St. Monica's.
St. Monica's.
Yes, my wife is devout Catholic. We've been married for 26 years, and so I used to go to St. James.
Okay.
I still poke in there every now and then, but St. Monica's Catholic Church is where we go and we raised our children.
All right. So, how did you wind up getting into development?
Totally by accident. When I got finished with KU, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next.
What's your degree in?
Human biology and microbiology.
Really? Okay.
It is. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I had a brother-in-law that was with the city's public finance agency because by charter, the city can't lend money directly to nonprofits. And so they had an intermediary agency at that time, HEDFC. Mm-hmm. And he was the senior VP and said, I got something for you, young blood. What is it? And at that time, it was disposing of assets from the old RTC, Resolution Trust Corporation, or savings and loans. Mm-hmm. And the idea was to get rid of assets. Most of them weren't great assets, but some of them were okay, to minority not-for-profits around the country. They had a contract to do that. He needed help. I knew nothing about real estate. I can barely hammer a nail. And he taught me everything I needed to know. And it started with 4 hours a day. Then it went to 8. Then I got my own little cubicle. And I got my own little corner office that was tiny. And it just went from there. So it was totally by accident. And then I had the good fortune while at HEDFC of working with, legends. Carl Arterberry, rest his soul. My brother-in-law, rest his soul. Tom Tierney, who was a real estate attorney, who structured a lot of the tax increment financing deals around the city. And they all just poured all that knowledge into me. So I'm really standing on the shoulders of so many people before me to even have the background to understand real estate and community economic development. So that's kind of how I got here. But it was not, had training. And at that time, unlike it is today, there was no formal college education around urban development, urban redevelopment, community economic development. So it was kind of, you get in it, if you were a neighborhood advocate or a community advocate, and you kind of learn from there.
Mm-hmm. And so Chuck Gaston, you always credit him with mentoring you by the shirt collar.
Absolutely. So, I have really several mentors. Mm-hmm. The most recent being Chuck Gaston, who, there's that legendary leader of Community Builders of Kansas City, so I walk in his shoes and footsteps. But Don Maxwell really, gave me the fire to understand community economic development and understanding the saying that Bernard Powell said of SAC 20, ghetto to gold mine, the choice is yours. And I didn't know what that meant until I really got to see economic development in the urban core and how there is a return on investment if it's done correctly. Mm-hmm. And so that stuck with me. And I just kind of fell into, job after job. Mr. Maxwell came and got me from the comfort of my brother-in-law's office and organization to run his housing, which, again, I can't hammer a nail. And I remember Mr. Maxwell said, my first job was, you got to build these 7 houses in the Vineyard neighborhood. And also Palestine Gardens North, which is right across the street from the old AutoZone Walgreens at Prospect and Linwood. And I knew nothing about, at that time it was about a $4 million deal and 7 houses. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, oh, yeah, by the way, if you don't get it done, you get fired.
Okay.
So I got it done, and the rest is pretty much history. So I've never had a bad boss ever. They gave tough love, absolutely. But ultimately they stress that everything is for the community, be about serving others, not self. And if you bring things out of the ground, then you'll be okay. And I've kind of just kept that as kind of the back of my mind, things to do and keep in the forefront.
So when you look at economic development in the urban core, what do you see or what don't you see that should be there?
Let's talk about what do I see. In economic development, oftentimes is a lot of things. To me and to community builders, it encompasses housing. Oftentimes you think of economic development as just housing. No, it's housing, it's workforce development, it's economic development, it's providing economic opportunity for those who may not have it. So it's all encompassing of whatever it's going to take to, one, bring economic life and vitality to a particular community. Oftentimes it's been marginalized or under-resourced.
Okay.
And then what it also means is being good stewards after you've done it as well. So that's what it means to us, and we kind of take that a little bit further with our newest venture, pickleball, and we can get into that a little bit later. What I don't see the sustained investment by the city. When I say the city, I'm just not talking about the city of Kansas, Missouri. I'm also talking about businesses, the business community. I remember, Eric, 10, 12 years ago maybe, the chamber had a campaign about One Kansas City.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, great. I thought that was great. Well, One Kansas City also means, the west side of Kansas City, the east side of Kansas City, out south, areas of Ruskin Heights. Is that still part of One Kansas City? It's hard to see, because what I don't see is that sustained investment that oftentimes we see in downtown, what we're now starting to see in the West Bottoms. What I saw along Troost. Yes, I remember what Troost used to look like when I was in high school. Right. But there was sustained investment by the city of Kansas, Missouri, and as a result, an extension, going to HUD and getting, a Section 108 loan to do the neighboring Beacon Hills. I don't see that sustained investment consistently, with the exception of 18th and Vine, on the east side of Kansas City. I just don't see it. If it's there, please show me. But, as I'm here on Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard, where we got to claw and scratch to get everything, I don't see that sustained investment.
And you mentioned 18th and Vine. You think it's a sustained investment in 18th and Vine?
Eyes have been on 18th and Vine since I started in this field. From going back to, the JDRC with Mr. Fleming. Right. To Mr. Whalen, to, Congressman Cleaver bringing back a $20 million EDI grant, Economic Development Initiative grant, to, we've had several iterations of trying to support minority entrepreneurs there, building up space for minority entrepreneurs. So there's been some thought there and some resource from time to time, making sure that the historic nature is still there. And I think that's super important. I wish it would have extended over to Parade Park, and those things. And I think that's moving along the right direction. But there has been sustained eyes on it, And again, my lens is going to be where I sit every day, and that's along the Brush Creek or Martin Luther King Jr. corridor. That investment, we've had to scratch, and claw. I remember you calling me when we were trying to do the Offices at Overlook financing, and you were like, why is it taking so long, and why are you having to jump through all these hoops? Right. It's par for the course. But there has been some level of investment in 18th and Vine. Is it to the level of $100 million? Maybe not. But it still has been constant eyes or thought process. And maybe Congressman Cleaver has kept that alive with others. But it's been there. You only think about our 47th Street corridor, which is what I know it as, or Blue Parkway or Dr. Martin King Boulevard, is when you go to the game. As I look at the investment that we're making currently in Samara Row, $45 million, whatever the number is, which the West Bottoms is a need, absolutely. Right. I'm not sure that $43 million in any one instance has been given to any project on the east side. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of, wiggle room there, because maybe it's something I'm not thinking about. But I'm like, think about that for a second, Eric. $43 million there to do infrastructure. Is some of the worst infrastructure in the city on the east side? Absolutely. So $43 million. How can $43 million jumpstart or act as a catalyst or a transformational investment on the east side? That'll go a long way.
And one of the things I always say about 18th and Vine is it's 3 blocks.
Yes.
It's from Woodland to Highland, Highland to Vine, Vine to Paseo. And I've watched Crossroads get completely, I'm going to say completely developed, but developed.
Sustained investment.
Exactly.
Sustained investment. Now,
and we still can't get 3 blocks. We watched the whole Power and Light District get built, the Sprint Arena or whatever they call it now, and we still can't get 3 blocks developed.
Sustained investment. And in the case of Power and Light, that sustained investment now manifests itself of an every year appropriations to fulfill the debt service of the outstanding bonds and financing there. So it's sustained investment. I'll keep on using that word.
Okay.
But 18th and Vine, I'm going to say is on the come up. And what I mean by that, you have a great project that's getting ready to be done with Michael Collins and the Negro League, Bob Kendrick, the hotel there and parking garage. There's some other projects. I'm hopeful and optimistic on what's going to be done at Parade Park with Flaherty and Collins in conjunction with 12th Street Development. So I'm optimistic about that. Again, I'm trying to see how we get that same investment on some of our areas that have been without. I remember when they changed the name from Blue Parkway to Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard, I was vocally and outspoken critic of that because I was concerned about the devaluation of the work that community builders have done for the past 34 years. We haven't had that sustained investment despite having a tremendous base by which has already been built to build upon and to further do more development as we go back toward west, towards 71 Highway, back toward the plaza. What does that investment look like had we had $43 million, had we had, $50 million? I remember when philanthropy was all on board with doing the Nelson edition. Whatever the number was, Eric, I don't know if you realize that's literally less than a mile away from the imaginary Mason-Dixon line of truce. What would that sustained investment look like from philanthropy had we did that on the other side? Right.
Because if you're going out Emmanuel Cleaver Boulevard, you figure from Truce all the way over to Paseo, that's Ollie Gates' pocket money.
Absolutely.
That's his pocket money.
And that was done with private investment by Mr. Gates. Sure, there's some tiff there, but that got jump-started with him taking the risk to go ahead and be the first in resources to do it.
So this past summer, we walked, we did a Kumbaya walk with the mayor, and we had lights, camera, and action, and, this is going to get fixed. that we're going to do something about this, and that we're talking about 31st and Prospect, the Linwood Shopping Center.
Yes.
I remember distinctly, and I took pictures, and it's going to be in my paper. Hopefully I can get it in this week. We took pictures of fences that were missing, gaps in the fence, and fencing that looked like it had been run over by a car or truck. So what are we looking like today, 3 months later?
I'm going to say, so I have not been out there this week.
Okay.
I was on a little vacation.
Okay. I was there last Wednesday.
I was. However, as of last week before the holiday, we're still looking at a property where the fence is still down. It's still not fixed. That sends a message to the community. That sends a message to those who are seeking to not do positive things, that nobody cares. And I'm saying that from one, as someone who has an organization that has a business that's located in that shopping center. I'm saying that as someone that is over the operations management of 500,000 square feet of commercial retail office space here on the campus that we share with Swope Health. So I'm just not some person looking. We actually run a shopping center.
Okay.
And you have to keep eyes on it at all times. You have to be an engaged and involved owner to make sure that your property is, a reflection of how you want it to be. And so that's a concern. And that leads to, it's the broken window syndrome. One broken window leads to the next and the next, and then 1 block and 2 blocks. That begins to creep into the psyche of a community if your shining example of economic viability is tarnished. And so that's where we are. So as of right now, Eric, I don't think the fence has been repaired since August when we did the Edmund Pettus Freedom Walk at Linwood and Prospect.
And so how are things at the grocery store? Last week, a woman was stealing a sandwich.
Still very difficult. I'm going to give a shout out with the positive that our employees there are second to none. They literally are putting their lives on the line, oftentimes, to bring groceries in a food desert to the community. It's very tough. The challenges are real in food deserts. I understand even more than I did before of why there are food deserts. The grocery business, I think, Eric, from our conversations over the year, is a very tough business. Even in non-urban areas, it's a tough bit. It's a penny business, literally. If you have a 3% profit, you are running a fantastic grocery store. So the margins are very pennies. And so, when we have elevated security cost, when my insurance is higher, when I have theft that's out of control, and that's with us having off-duty officers along with private security as well. When the city is, on its third security company that patrols the external of the shopping center, it's a tough place to do business. The Popeyes is not city owned; it's a separate parcel, but they're out of state landlords. That's a problem there. So it makes it very difficult. I understand that the Walgreens is now closed. That was my first deal I ever worked on for Mr. Maxwell, was the Walgreens deal. So it's gone.
But aren't they supposed to be opening back up?
I hadn't heard that. So if they are, great.
Somebody went through the store and started a fire.
Yes.
And my understanding was that they were going to eventually open back up, because you talk about food deserts, prescription drug desert is also an issue in that area. Maybe that's something community builders can look into for the store. But how much money have you all invested in that store?
So we acquired the store in February of 2022, and the store made a few nickels then. Since then, between 23 and now, 24 is almost over, we've invested in excess of $3 million of cash, on top of us having a loan on that store as well.
Wait a minute, hold on. So you have $3 million investment in, you said cash.
Yes.
But you all are in the development business.
We
you
are.
make money off of the building things. So how are you managing to take building money and put it in a grocery store?
So remember when we started our conversation off with what's economic development? This is community economic development. The board of directors of Community Builders felt so strongly that we were concerned about the store closing. The longtime operator, after being in the grocery business for over 50 years, decided to leave. We can speculate as to why he left. I'm seeing part of that right now.
Did he have the naked people going through the store throwing stuff all over the store?
I don't think nobody documented it. See, we documented it.
Okay.
And so we were concerned about it being a food desert again. And I started my career there.
Right.
My real development career there. So we made the strategic move to save the grocery store and buy the assets of the store. And we did that to save, at that time, 80 jobs. 95% of my work staff is within a 2-mile radius of the store. So we're concerned about the jobs going away. We were concerned about, that's the anchor of the city's $20+ million investment there. But we really wanted to make sure that individuals in that community had a full service grocery store like they used to when I first started my career there. That's what we want. That's why we did it. We went into it understanding that the grocery business is tough. We have a fantastic partnership with Ball Foods. They have been fantastic. But we're taking money out of our operations to put into that store for its operations. So it's a little bit different. And, we did not anticipate making that type of an investment into the store. And we're having to do that just because of the surrounding area of crime. And it's gotten a smidget better. And I say smidget. I don't have the open prostitution going on now that I'm aware of.
Right.
I don't have that going on.
Right.
But it's still a very tough area to work in. And, if you don't make it where people feel safe coming into your store.
Right.
If I have to go through aggressive panhandling, if I have to go through drug deals, if I have to go through people, saying and doing whatever they want to do when I get out of my car for me and my family, then that's not a viable place for me to shop.
Right.
It's just not. And so, we can talk about all the community development. We can talk about all the security we want. People have to feel safe, especially when they're spending their hard-earned money to provide groceries for their family. And my last 2 store directors have cited, we love Community Builders. We love CBKC Eats, which is the holding company for our 2 grocery stores. But we have real concerns about our safety. When my high schoolers are having to bring tasers to work to sack groceries, that's a problem. And so, again, it's not that we just came to you, Eric, and others. We've been at this now for close to 2 years of trying to quietly meet with the police department and quietly meet with the ownership of, which is the city of Kansas, Missouri, quietly trying to understand how we can move this thing in the right direction. And it really took us putting it in full view, which I didn't want to do.
Right.
But I got encouraged to do it because when I said it was bad, everybody said, "Oh, we know it's bad, Emmett." But no, they didn't know how bad until I showed,
right,
at Morningstar Family Life Center, the videos.
Right.
And everybody was aghast. My workers have been dealing with that for almost 2 years.
Right.
I mean, so you can't run a business like that. We don't have quiet enjoyment of our lease and our space that we pay monthly on. This is not something that, we pay rent. Whether we make money or not. And that's a challenge. So the positive, I guess, is that Councilwoman Melissa Hasley and Councilman Nathan Willard sponsored an ordinance or legislation about a month ago to get $750,000 eventually to the store. That's the positive.
But you said eventually, so it might be this time next year.
Let's hope not. Let's just say that I talked to a city official before the holiday, and we're trying to get this done by the end of the year. Here's my challenge with that. When we were on the Freedom Walk, we talked about, hey, we're going to help you immediately. We're going to get this done, X, Y, and Z.
That's what he said.
Everybody said that.
Everybody said that. I was there.
And, that was in August when we were sweating,
Walking across the street. Photo op. Cameras rolling. And now we're in November. No, we're in December.
We're in December. My fault. And so in the grocery business, which is a daily business, and your biggest time in the grocery industry is last week. I kept on saying, hey, if we're going to get the help, I need it now. And, that didn't happen. So, and there's a myth that, we got $750,000 into the store.
Right.
That has not occurred yet. We have not received any resources. The way the ordinance is written, that it goes to the Community Improvement District, the CID, which I'm a part of. That has to be amended. Okay. There are 3 pots of money that it's coming from: the Health Levy Fund,
right,
Shared Success Fund, and I think General Revenue Fund.
Right.
Which, it's rare that they go into the General Revenue Fund that I'm aware of very often, especially on the east side.
Right.
So that happened, but I got to have resources into the store. Back in September, as we were asked, we provided, an $800,000 request with backup to the city, because that's what they wanted. 2 of my board members subsequently met with other people, city manager one, and, we're going to try to make it happen. And,
So they wanted you to give them $800,000?
No.
Oh, okay.
All the backup for what I had spent.
Okay.
Fine. We did. It took us about a week to pull it. We put out all the invoices and all that stuff. We sent the package down.
Okay.
And then it went to, let's see if we can make a bigger investment. Okay, great. Thanks to 2 of my board members that had individual conversations. So it went to, we're going to get $1.5 million for you.
Okay.
Great. But then it went to, it's going to go to the CID, and the other little caveat is you got to keep the store open for 3 years. Now, nobody talked about that, and I'm going to be very honest with you. That situation is very fluid, because it's not just about us running the store. It's about what happens outside of the store, working in concert with one another. Because, again, I go back to my previous comments. If you don't feel safe,
right,
perception is reality.
Right.
And I think in this case, Eric, you've been around all the statistics around what the police have provided,
right,
with the number of calls and the number of prosecutions and all that good stuff. That's got to get under control, and expecting me to commit to something in the future when, there's all these milestones that they want me to do. But I haven't heard any milestones on what happens with the owners of the property. What are their milestones? Are we going to, cut property crimes in half? Are we going to, cut down on the number of calls to the police station? Are we going to increase the city prosecutions? I don't know. I mean, those are all milestones that if I'm having to have milestones, then conversely, it needs to go both ways.
The owners need to have.
The owners need to have that. And so that's the challenge that we find ourselves in. And, we couldn't close the store during the holiday.
Right.
It's not the right thing to do, but I also have to balance that with, I can't let this 34-year-old strong CDC not-for-profit that does so many other things for the city, we can't begin to teeter financially because of this grocery store. And so that's the challenge that we are in right now. I've been saying we need help. It's coming slowly, but by the time I actually get resources into the coffers, it might be too late.
When we talk about that and think about what the city's role is, because you brought up a great point, the city owns the shopping center.
That's correct.
That is their property.
That is their property.
So when the homeless people were sleeping out in City Hall front lawn, when the city got tired of it, they immediately reacted. They let the people stay there for, maybe a month. But after that, they put a fence around it. They closed that. They reacted to protect the city asset, which
Absolutely.
is City Hall. And so that same energy. And I remember when the press conference was first held, it was for the 100th homicide of the year.
Yes.
And that's what the mayor wanted to emphasize. So at first they were going to do it in Brookside. And Melissa Johnson, who was the public safety director at that time,
Yes.
said, no, we need to do it on 31st Street. And when they went over there, they got you never even heard about the 100th homicide once you and Mr. Maxwell started showing him what was really going on over there. So I commend you all for that. But the city has to have a better grasp on what's going on other than just taking photo ops. Because that was really a photo op, because nothing came out of it after that. I mean, he came in, we walked around the store, you showed him things that was in the store that were an issue. People going in, punching holes in the meat, putting peels in there, putting tomatoes in there. So now you got to throw all the meat away.
All of it. $40,000.
$40,000 worth of meat. And the city is responsible because they have to provide an environment that is conducive for you to be successful in business.
Quiet enjoyment of my space.
Is that the language that's in there?
That's the language that we're using. We want quiet enjoyment, which is a real estate vernacular, if you will, when you deal with leasing. Eric, it has been...
Compare it, before you do.
Sure.
Compare it to Shops on Blue Parkway.
Sure. So
2 stores there.
Stores there. So, the Shops on Blue Parkway, that's a huge store. That's a 55,000 square foot store. And it's a 20-year-old store. I mean, so the systems are not as efficient anymore, and we're working on that. But we own the center. We control the environment of the center. I or one of my colleagues walks that center every single day. Mm-hmm. I have, a professional management company, Colliers, that we work hand in hand with. I have 24-hour security, that I'm in constant contact with. I mean, I'm picking up trash. Mm-hmm. Members of my staff pick up trash. If I'm on my landscaper, if there's any, I need to have flowering, things beautiful all the time. We are invested because that's our investment. We are a build and hold developer. And so you have to have that kind of vigilance on any shopping center, no matter where it is, but especially if you're in an underserved environment where you get one chance to make an impression. And so it can't be you see it on the way home once a month. It can't be you see it if you're out there for a meeting with Mr. Maxwell. Mm-hmm. It can't be that you only rely on what you hear. You have to go walk it just like we did and see it front and back and know what's around. That's what we do here on this campus. I put this campus up against any place in the city as far as its cleanliness, its beauty, its safety. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what it takes to run a shopping center. And that's not happening. No matter how much people try, get an A, great. But you got to do. You got to get results. And having a fence down for basically over a year and a half is unacceptable. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unacceptable. And now to sit back and have, typically, and I've been in real estate now for 34 years, you typically cater to your anchor. If the anchor says they need something, you're jumping to make it happen, especially if that's the draw for the center.
Right.
The anchor typically doesn't have to go down there and beg and plead and, can you please help us? Because quite candidly, I, along with community builders, we're very proud. We try not to ask for anything unless it's something that's going to be transformative, like we did on the Overlook. That's a transformative project. We ask for the city's help, But our initial ask is just, can you clean up the stuff outside the store? And I understand there's all kind of mental issues with folk around there. I understand it. Let me take off my community hat for a second, Eric, and be a businessman. Hey, I ain't trying to hear all that. Because as you alluded to, the city cleared all that stuff out at City Hall.
Right.
When I go down the street to Aldi's, which I remember Troy Nash and others sitting out there in the campouts,
right,
39th and Prospect, drive by Aldi's. Do you see all that going on at Aldi's?
Nope.
You don't see it.
And their fence stays intact.
Stays intact. I mean, so it's like we got to do better. But when the anchor starts screaming, typically, folks say, hey, what do you need? Let's get on it right now. Hey, but, here, I got to go down there and jump on top of the table, send my board members down there. I mean, we got to hold press conferences. It is not how real estate works typically, especially when you're the anchor and you're the draw for not only the west side of the center, for the east side as well. You got Linwood Shopping Center, the west side, and then Linwood Square is the east side. That's the draw for the entire center. I remember what it was like when that store was dark.
Yeah.
When the miners left.
Yeah, I remember.
I remember that.
I wrote about it for years.
We don't want that to happen again.
Yeah.
And that's where we are.
Because that pretty much blighted the whole, both sides of the street shopping center.
Absolutely.
I think Family Dollar was there for a while. But,
absolutely.
And the Foot Locker. But anyway, we're out of time. We're way past time. But this has been so intriguing. I should have started with this, but I wanted to make sure that people had something of substance to
I'm happy
think
to come
about.
back. I'm happy to come back.
What you want people to remember as we wrap up?
Come
in and support the store.
Come in, support the store. We're going to try to turn it around with some assistance. If we can't get sustained assistance, I'm going to go back to sustained investment, then we're not going to turn around and we will close the store. Then let me be very clear about that. If we cannot get sustained investment and assistance, and that includes making sure that environment is safe, we will close the store.
And so when you mean sustained investment, like they give to the Power and Light District.
Power and Light District.
Bad host.
I didn't say that, bad host. Or what we do for infrastructure development in other areas, the crossroads and all those type of areas. That's
Exactly.
what I'm talking about. That kind of investment. Transformational investment. Even at the height of what the city said is that they put $20 million in the shopping center. That's half of what they gave to the West Bottoms on one project, to one developer. Half. Just wrap your head around that for a little bit. That's half to one developer.
For one project.
For one project. Now that's going to create, 2,000 units of housing and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
To an out-of-town, not homegrown, 34-year-old track record developer.
Who they come to and say, hey, can you help us give out some turkeys? Our guest
See.
Our guest today was Mr. Emmet Pierson. He is president and CEO of Community Builders of Kansas City. Thanks so much for joining us. We got to have a follow-up.
We will.
We will come back in a few months. Let's see if the fence is fixed, if the city has written you that check for the $750,000 through the CID that nobody else has to go through a CID to do. But you all have to go through it.
The 750 is only half of what I'm out for this year.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. And as always, tough times don't last, tough people do. Until next time, peace.